Hi, friends. Welcome to CORELIGHT'S Spiritual Weather Report. It is March 24th, 2024, and I'm just so happy to be here with you. Whether you're listening real time or you're listening in the future, it doesn't matter. We're all here together in the field of love. There is no time and space in truth, so actually we are all together, no matter what your clock says. So this is Brad, and I'm calling in today from my home at the beautiful Blythe River Canyon in Limpopo, South Africa. I wish you could all be here and we could be sitting around in a circle together. The energy here is so beautiful. I do hope that you can feel it a little bit through my words, through the vibration of my voice. It's just been so exquisite to be here for a few months. I don't get to stay here all year long, but when I'm here, I truly treasure these moments, and I'm delighted to be able to share it a little bit with you here at the foot of the sacred mountain. The equinox was just a few days ago, and there's an eclipse in about 12 hours. So these are power moments, and if you're listening live or close to the time of the recording, you can still take advantage of the power available to us through these heavenly movements. Eclipses always offer enhanced opportunities for transformation. So it is a great time to commit to a change you'd like to make, maybe, and to offer that intention up to the universe. It always has extra power at this time. So before we begin our session today, I want to welcome everybody who's new to CORELIGHT, and also welcome to all of our old friends too. For those who are new, every month I tune in on what's happening in the collective consciousness, and I'm always shown a few key themes to talk about on these calls. And today there are 3 themes. They are, number 1, being a bridge between old and new paradigms. Number 2, healing from loneliness. Number 3, finding joy amidst challenges. So for anybody who's new to these spiritual weather report calls, I start by offering a guided meditation, and then I will speak about the prevailing energies that are affecting us, and also about the spiritual principles that are most helpful for us right now. And then we'll have time for questions and answers. And we always close the session with a brief guided meditation or a prayer or whatever we have time for. And if you need to leave before the call ends, you can always listen to the recording later. We do send out the link to our email list, and it's also posted on YouTube. Before we start with our guided meditation, just a few little housekeeping update type things. For the Love of Animals, my online course that I'm co-teaching with Leslie's and my friend and colleague Anna Breitenbach, it's very close to being ready. I know I've been saying that for a few months now, but we really are getting very close, and we do plan to have it ready very soon. So thank you for your patience while we make it perfect for you. That's the plan. We're really pouring our hearts and souls into it to make it perfect for you. If you want to know about the course for the Love of Animals, you can find out about it on our Sacred Activism page on our website at CORELIGHT.org. It's on the main menu, you go to Sacred Activism and then Interspecies Communication. And then you'll find on that page a little 2-minute video about the course there, and we'll be posting a much bigger page soon with all the details. So please stay tuned for the email announcement on that if you're interested. We're also in the process of represencing one of Leslie's courses that we've offered before, the 7 Portals of Spiritual Awakening. If you've been around for a long time, you may have taken that course. It's been around for a while, but we're giving it an uplift, and it's timeless and powerful. So I'm super excited about that course. We've gotten so much positive feedback about it over the years. So please stay tuned for the 7 Portals of Spiritual Awakening as well, which will be announced by email later this year. Lastly, I want to thank everybody who has been emailing me. I really, really appreciate your feedback about these spiritual weather reports. I've been asking for more feedback lately. I did hear from many of you that you appreciated my sharing last month about my personal life, my Leslie's and my personal situation regarding her memory loss and all the challenges and the changes that we've been going through as a result of that. So I especially appreciate knowing that, because I haven't shared much about that in public at all, because it's felt very private and very personal, and yet I feel as though I've benefited tremendously from sharing recently with you about it, because I feel more seen and more heard. So I've felt grateful to have you as a community witnessing Leslie's and my journey, and there's something very healing about that. I think it's a very basic human need to be seen and heard, and to have your journey witnessed by other people. And in fact, we're going to be talking more about that today. It's part of one of the themes, so I'm not going to get ahead of myself here. But again, I just want to say thank you for witnessing my sharing, my personal sharing, and for receiving our story and for giving that feedback to me. It was really important. So please, I invite you to continue sending me any feedback that you care to. I love hearing from you, whether it's feedback about the spiritual weather reports or about your own journey. I really do appreciate it. I read everybody's emails. I'm not always able to reply personally, but if I can, I do. So anyway, thank you again for all your sharing and your feedback. All right, without further ado, let us begin our guided meditation. I invite you to get comfortable and to close your eyes and relax, lying down or sitting up in a chair, but just whatever you do, just try to make your spine straight but still be comfortable. And let's begin with a few long, slow, deep breaths. Just relaxing with each exhale. Breathing in the light. Breathing out any tension in the body. Breathing in all the love and the life force that surrounds you. Breathing out any stress. Breathing in the present moment. Breathing out any worries about the past or the future. Just being right here, right now, and giving yourself the gift of this present moment with your spiritual journey, with this beautiful spiritual community, this virtual community. I invite you, as you breathe and relax, to tune in to this field of love that surrounds us, that we generate together, and that also Spirit meets us halfway with. There's a lot of light and energy that pours in from the invisible realms, uplifting us, supporting us, nurturing us. So as you relax and let go, I just invite you to receive. With each exhale, continue to go yin, as we call it. That means just go receptive, go relaxed, completely letting go. Nowhere to go, nothing to do. Just being right here, right now. I invite you to do a muscular relaxation with me as we scan the body from head to toes. I'm going to go a little quicker today than we normally do, so don't be alarmed if you're a regular and this is a little shorter than normal, but we have a lot to cover. So I I just invite you to feel a very warm, relaxing, beautiful energy pouring in through the top of your head. Feel it drifting through your body like a leaf falling from a tree, gently flowing down your whole body, relaxing every single muscle that it touches along the way. Relaxing all the muscles of the scalp and the face and the head, the neck and shoulders, all the way down the arms and the torso, sweeping you clean of any stress. Just feeling yourself letting go as this energy pours down through your body. It's a warm, peaceful vibration. Just feeling this slow pouring of energy down the abdomen, down the midsection, the lower back, buttocks, pelvis, the whole pelvic region, down your legs, all the way down to the feet and toes, to the hands and fingertips. Just sweeping you clean, any stress in the body. So let's do a few more long, slow, deep breaths. I'll be quiet for a few moments while you scan your body one more time from head to toes, just feeling this deep relaxation in every single muscle and breathing light into any place where you might still be holding on to tension. As you continue to breathe and let go, I invite you to put your attention on the root chakra, which is at the base of the spine. If you're new to chakras, don't worry about this. Just visualize as best you can. And if you can't feel it, that's totally fine too. You can just imagine, visualize. So the root chakra is at the base of the spine. It opens down into the earth like a funnel. So feel your grounding cord dropping down from there, all the way down to the center of the earth, connecting with the core of the earth. And let's commingle our energy with the earth energy, and then draw that earth energy at the core of the earth back up into your body, up through the soles of the feet, all the way up the legs, up the spine, feeling the core meridian of the body, which sits right in front of the spine like a tube of golden white light. This is our core, the core of enlightenment within each one of us. So feel the earth energy moving all the way up the core, up to the top of the head. And as you bring this energy up to the top of the head, feel your crown chakra and how it naturally opens and how the scalp naturally relaxes just by putting your attention there. If you're new to chakras, the crown chakra sits on top of your head like a crown that a king or a queen would wear, and it opens up and out like a funnel above your head. So you can just feel it and visualize it. It's also known as the 1,000-petaled lotus. So you can visualize it and feel it unfurling petal by petal on the top of your head, opening up and out. Beautiful feeling when you can attune to it. Just feel your crown chakra opening wide. And let's send our core energy out the top of the head, out into formless space, out to the source of universal energy of your choosing. It might look like a spiral galaxy, or a sun, or a star, or a group of heavenly beings, ascended masters, or angels, whatever source of universal energy you would like to connect to. I invite you to just feel your core going up into the celestial realms and connecting with this source of universal energy, and then feeling it as you draw it back down into your body through the top of your head, and feel it raining down on you like a gentle mist of golden white light, raining down and filling up your aura, filling up your body, this beautiful, beautiful universal energy, celestial energy. And as you fill up, feel every single cell of your being receiving this beautiful divine energy. Trillions of little cells inside your body like miniature sponges, soaking up this beautiful golden white light and love. It's the energy of love. Just receive it. And feel your body, your physical body, now as the midpoint between heaven and earth. Your physical body is the connection point between spirit and matter, heaven and earth. Just allow that understanding, that awareness to be there. There's nothing to do with it. There's nowhere to go with that. Just feeling it, feeling your connection to Mother Earth, Father Sky, above and below. And relax into this. I invite you to just let go. And like I said at the beginning, go yin. Just relax and receive. Fill up with this beautiful earth energy and this beautiful celestial energy. And now I'll say a little prayer and an invocation for our call today. Great Spirit, we call on you. We call on all of our highest guides and teachers, all the angels and archangels and Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and ascended masters, all the beings who surround us in the highest love, highest support. We invite you in. We ask that you please surround us with the cocoon of beautiful golden white light and love and healing energy. And again, it doesn't matter if you're listening to this live or in the future, because actually we're all live. We're in this field of love where there is no time and space. So we are all together in this cocoon of love and light and healing energy. And we ask you please to guide our conversation today into the highest love and the highest wisdom. Hold our hands as we walk out into the world today, into our soul's highest purpose. Make us instruments of your peace and your love and your joy. Let us serve in the highest way, sharing our light with the earth. We send a special blessing out today to all beings, all life on this planet, especially those who suffer, those who are in pain and suffering, especially those affected by war, natural disasters, hunger, illness, loneliness, deprivation of any kind. We send special blessings of peace and upliftment to all life. And we give thanks. Thanks for this opportunity to share this field of love together. Thanks for this opportunity to be incarnate at this extraordinary time, the turning of the ages, in these beautiful, beautiful bodies that we get to wear for a few years on this exquisite blue, fragile blue planet. So grateful for this opportunity. even amidst the changes and the challenges we face. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Alalaho. Alalaho. If you're new, that is Tibetan for Amen, and it means, isn't it wonderful? I love that. And so now I invite you to very slowly and gently bring your awareness back into your body. If you were expanded, just come right back into the physical reality, into your body. Wiggle your fingers and toes, and then slowly open your eyes when you feel ready. Oh. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you again for showing up for our divine appointment to be together right now. I just love these calls, as you know. I say this every time. I think that this time of the month is a real highlight for me when we get to be together in this field of love. I really can feel you, and I hope you are also feeling this beautiful field that we get to share. So let's dive into our topics for today. Actually, you know what? Before we dive in, I want to say we do a lot of talking on these calls, but honestly, I feel like maybe more important, if not equally as important, probably more important is the energy. So I just invite you, even as, you know, I'm talking and you're listening, if you're multitasking, I know that that's necessary for most people, so I invite you to just try to be yin as you can be, and just continue to receive this energy. There really is this extraordinary field. If you don't have to multitask, the easiest way to receive it is just to meditate and relax and receive. So if you can't, if you have to multitask, you'll still receive it anyway. It's just that you might not be conscious of it. You might not feel it, but it does go in. So our first topic for today is being a bridge between old and new paradigms. All of us, we're all bridges between the old paradigm, the paradigm of patriarchy or the paradigm of separation, whatever you want to call it, and the new paradigm of the heart. And what I mean by that is that we all carry aspects of the patriarchy, we all carry aspects of separation within us, as well as aspects of the new paradigm of the heart. We have a foot in both worlds to some degree. So if you're listening to this call, I have no doubt that you're leaning in the direction of the new paradigm of the heart. I know a lot of us have 2 feet in that paradigm, and only occasionally do we take a little step back out into the paradigm of separation. But that's the direction we're moving. So just to clarify for anybody who might be new to these calls, when I say the new paradigm of the heart, I'm really just talking about living in heart-centered consciousness. That's the new paradigm that's birthing on the planet right now. And I want to say, I also think age is probably a little bit of a factor here. If you were born, I think around 1990-ish or later, or maybe even the late 1980s, so maybe if you're around your late 30s or younger, you probably grew up with the internet and cell phones and personal computers. But if you were like me, born before that, you didn't. And so for those of us who didn't, we're part of another generation that carries a little bit of a different imprint and a bit of a different consciousness. And I'm not talking about everybody. This is very, very broad brushstroke. Very big generalization I'm making here, so please don't be offended if you don't feel this fits for you. But I think there are quite a few younger people whose parents may have raised them a little more consciously than our parents were able to, for the most part. I know there were still some conscious parents back in the day, and so if that was you and you were blessed with that, wow, lucky you. I feel very blessed myself. I was raised by very loving parents. So anyway, I think many of this younger generation may have less of that old imprinting than the rest of us do. But those of us who spend a little bit more time getting imprinted by the patriarchal system, we chose to incarnate at that time. We did it purposefully. We incarnated into the families that we did so that we'd get that imprinting so that we could clear it. And this is our gift to our ancestors, and it's our gift to the collective. And obviously, it's our gift to ourselves, of course, too. And I know the younger generation have their own kind of imprinting that they're here to clear as well, but it's a bit different than ours. And all of us, no matter when you were born, we're all bridges between these two paradigms. So I wonder if you know how you're a bridge between the two paradigms. I think it's helpful to know, and that's partly why I feel like that idea to talk about it was given to me for this month. I can give you, I know it sounds pretty vague so far, so I'd like to give you a personal example, just in case it's helpful to explain this a little bit more, to ground it a little bit. So for me, I know that I incarnated into a man's body at the time I did, born in the 60s, to get imprinted with that old paradigm, what do we call it, macho man kind of stuff. Men don't show emotion, big boys don't cry, all of that stuff. I'm going to list a few things just to make it super clear for everybody. There was the whole idea that men don't show any kind of vulnerability. The idea that it's weak to be vulnerable. And when in reality, being vulnerable takes enormous courage and strength. And as we've talked about in other calls, it's one of the yin powers or the feminine powers. So it's a total misnomer to think that it's weak in anyone, man or woman. It's an incredible strength. It's an incredible power. And I think one of the most watched TED Talks ever is about this. It's about the power of vulnerability. And the woman's name who gives the talk is Brené Brown. I don't know if you've missed it. I highly recommend it. Very worth watching. Again, Brené, B-R-E-N-E, Brown, and you'll find it easily. It's got millions of views. Okay, so another one of the old patriarchal imprints is that it's weak for a man to show any aspect of his feminine side. And if you're similar age to me, you might remember this popular book in the 70s in the U.S. It was called Real Men Don't Eat Quiche. And I thought, what the hell? The book was like going around, and I thought, what? I love quiche. What is, it was full of these stereotypical things that were supposed to be funny. I really didn't think it was very funny. But we all have that imprinting inside us, whether we know it or not. We all have a masculine and feminine side within us. It does not matter what gender we are or what our sexual orientation is. We have both masculine and feminine inside us. So to deny one of those sides is to suppress a part of ourselves, and that leads to suffering. I remember one of the worst insults that you could give a boy or a man. It was to call him girlish. And I don't know if that's still true, but when I was growing up, it certainly was. And my God, what a testament to our misogynistic culture, right? Wow. I think it's probably not as true anymore, but I'm sure it still exists to some degree. But I think that's just a really important thing to name, that is part of this old paradigm. And you certainly didn't talk about being gay or bisexual even. And I was. So I thought, oh my God, this is not going to go so well. But, coming out of the closet in the 1980s was one of the hardest things I ever did in my life, to face the shame of that and and the disapproval and the rejection and all the rest of that baggage that's in there. But by processing, what we call processing, all of that shadow at the bottom of the downward spiral, that egoic stuff, and letting it go, making it conscious and letting it go, and by standing in my personal truth, and by being transparent about it, I would say, instead of hiding it and being ashamed of it, that was a great opportunity to clear this aspect of the old paradigm. So I know that's one of the big things I came in to do. It was to break that mold and to be a bridge to this new archetype where we're not locked into to such rigid forms, let's say, of what it means to be a man. And I know there are plenty of men doing that work as well. If you're a man listening to this call, then I'm sure you've been doing some kind of similar work. We're all, as we're on this path of spiritual awakening, we're all learning to open our hearts. And to do that, we have to balance masculine and feminine. We have to start to look at and develop our feminine side. So anyway, I could go on, but I think you get the idea. I chose to incarnate a man's body to get imprinted with all of that old, outmoded nonsense, and to transmute all of that shadow, and then to be a bridge into a new form. It's like as we do the consciousness clearing work, we then become a living, breathing example and a bridge to this new paradigm of the heart, to this heart-centered consciousness. And then, by osmosis, we open a door in consciousness that other people can walk through. And nobody even has to know we did the clearing work. It's kind of like magic. It's not hocus pocus, it's not woo-woo. It's real. It's very real. But we don't have to meet other people or stand in front of a room and talk about it. It just happens automatically in consciousness without our having to take any kind of physical action. And I feel like I'd like to just give you one other quick example. It's Leslie, one of Leslie's examples. Leslie, frequently, she would talk about how she was a bridge between the old and the new paradigms, and she knew that's why she had incarnated. And there are many examples that she gave, but there's a simple one I thought I would share with you today because it's a really good one. So when Leslie started her work as a spiritual teacher in the late 1980s, after her enlightenment experience, she didn't want to sit on a stage. She always wanted to sit in a circle with the group. And that was because she wanted to be egalitarian. Circles represent being equal with each other, and that's part of the new paradigm of the heart, is egalitarianism. And she felt sitting on a stage would be hierarchical, and it would be like setting herself above and apart from other people. So the sitting in circles worked really well in the beginning when the groups were fairly small. But then, when the groups got a little bit bigger, we couldn't fit a circle in the room where we were holding our events. We were traveling quite a bit. We were going to different cities at that time, and the rooms varied in size. But generally speaking, they weren't huge. They weren't large enough to fit a giant circle. So eventually, we had to do theater-style seating. And Leslie would sit in front of the group, but she still remained on the floor, the same level as everybody else, because it was this principle. She wanted to maintain this sense of egalitarianism, even though it wasn't a circle anymore. And it was theater style. And that was also okay for a little while, but again, with time, the groups kept growing, and as they got bigger, the people in the back rows couldn't see her anymore. And they started complaining. They were like, what's up with this? So we tried to explain to people why Leslie wanted to sit on the same level with them. but it was just hard. It was just hard for people not to be able to see her. You can imagine, you're in the back row, you came all this way, you're spending your time, and you want to see her. And so eventually they insisted that her seat had to be higher so that they could see her. And so finally she relented in the end, and she sat up on a stage with the rest of the room sitting theater style down below, and so everybody could see her and she could see them. But then some people accused her of being hierarchical. So it was like you couldn't really win. I think that's a testament to our system of separation. We have these either or minds. It's like it's one or the other. Anyway, just to be clear, I think this is a really good example of how both sides of that polarity have their place. Egalitarianism and hierarchy. One is not bad and the other good. We talked about this last month. Hierarchy is not wrong and egalitarianism right. Egalitarianism right. They've each got their place. It's not an either or, it's a both and. It's this dance between the two, and there's a time and a place for the yang, the masculine side, to express itself, just as there's a time and a place for the yin, feminine side, to be expressed. And so hierarchy and egalitarianism both have their strengths. And if we're stuck in that kind of black and white thinking, then that's when we're in the either or mind. And we're stuck in the limitations of the ego, or what we call the system of separation. As I said, in that system of separation, it's our minds that divide the two sides of a polarity, and we judge one side as inferior and the other as superior. And I think this is one of the main keys to our spiritual awakening. It's learning to shift the mind from that polarized thinking into a more unified way of seeing the world. So there's million shades of gray between the black and the white. It's about not being locked into one side of a polarity, but about being fluid and flexible so that we can see both sides. And to free our minds enough to be able to choose our own path. Whatever form is appropriate in the moment. Sometimes it's the yin side that we choose, that's appropriate, and sometimes it's the yang side. But we have the choice. We're not locked in to one side or having to choose a certain side because of patterns, because of a limited patterned way of thinking and behaving. So I think that example, that little example of Leslie's, is a great one of being a bridge. She always said that some of the forms that she had to use in her teaching would look like an old paradigm form, but that was just because that was what was available at the time. And some of that was necessary, like sitting on the stage. And I think in a bigger way, she incarnated as a woman so she could clear a lot of the feminine wounding and step fully into her true power and her spiritual awakening. And she knew that she had incarnated mainly to be this pioneer of a new kind of consciousness, and to offer people the very simple methods that she developed so that they could get there too. And that's what all of her books and audios and courses are about. They're helping to create that bridge in a physical way and in consciousness as well, that bridge into the new paradigm of the heart. And if you're new to CORELIGHT, we really go into this in depth in the first book that we wrote, called The Marriage of Spirit. And if this is a subject that interests you, I would recommend reading that book. It's on our website or anywhere you buy books. And I also I taught a course a few years ago that's now up on our website called The New Paradigm of the Heart, Transcending Victim Tyrant Consciousness. And there's a lot more in that course as well on this same subject. So both of those things are available on our website at corelight.org. So anyway, back to the point. I was asking you if you know how you're a bridge between the old and the new paradigms. So do you know? And I'll bet many of you do, but if not, or if you haven't thought about it much, that might be some good home practice. Maybe it's something you can meditate on between now and next month's call. So you'd be looking at what is your particular archetype or persona that you're here to clear, right? Because that's the gift that you're here to offer the world. So I also want to add that it's really important not to get down on ourselves for carrying aspects of the old paradigm with us. Super important that we acknowledge that this is part of our purpose for incarnating. If we can become conscious of the old forms that we've incarnated into, and we can name them, and we can see how we're helping to clear them and transmute them, that's a huge part of our spiritual growth. And then also naming how we're helping to build the bridges into the new forms and into heart-centered consciousness, and what those new forms are that we came to model and to share with other people. I know that it's unfortunate, but sometimes, we have that pattern where we tend to beat ourselves up for carrying these limiting patterns with us. So if you're judging yourself to some degree for your patterns, now is a really good time to let all of that judgment go. And just to recognize that this is why you incarnated. It's why you're here. And there's a perfection to having those patterns that might seem so awful, but you're here to clear them and to move into your empowerment. So just a little reframe there that I think is important. Also, I think it's important to remember that as souls, we chose to incarnate in a specific situation and to experience the childhood traumas and the wounding, and even as adults, adult traumas. And then we tend to beat ourselves up for not being good enough, not being clear enough, for having these limited patterns that we have, like we should be clearer, right? Or we should be somehow more advanced on the path. We should be farther along. We shouldn't be falling back into the wounding, and we shouldn't be locked into limitations and patterning that makes us think and behave in certain ways. But that's, as we all know, that's shoulding. That's shoulding all over ourselves. We had to do it this way. We had to come in with this. We're courageous souls, and we came in to heal these wounds, to stop those karmic cycles of our ancestors. This is part of that bridge that we came to build in the new way. And those who come after us are going to benefit from those bridges we're building. And even our ancestors are benefiting from the bridges we're building. When I have a breakthrough, I always hear my ancestors clapping. They're like around us applauding. I see it for other people too. So I invite you to become aware of that. And our descendants won't have to struggle with those old limitations and the wounds and the patterns because of the work that we're doing. And this is our gift to them and to the world. And it's important to celebrate our role as bridge builders, and to remember not to judge ourselves and get angry with ourselves. And it's also important not to judge other people as well. So I think this helps us to have a little compassion, because we've all got our wounding that we're working with, and we're all doing what we can to complete that old paradigm stuff and to build those bridges into the new paradigm of the heart. the individual bridging that we're each doing is finishing up all those ancestral karmas and our past lives and that collective stuff. We're finishing it up, and we're paving a way for a new consciousness to birth. It's like as souls, we decided the buck is going to stop with us. And so we especially came in to clear and to heal that shadow of the patriarchal era, which is so much of it. It's really about two things, mainly. So much about the imbalances between masculine and feminine, yin and the yang. And it's also so much about clearing victim-tyrant consciousness. Victim-tyrant consciousness is really the number one shadow process that the whole world is working on right now. Transcending victim-tyrant consciousness. I know we talk about that a lot on these calls, but the balancing of the yin and the yang, the masculine and the feminine, is directly related to that. They go hand in hand, those two. And it reminds me of how we left off on last month's call. We talked a lot about remembering the power of the feminine, the yin. And I wonder if any of you had a chance to try out that exercise that I suggested, where you were examining your yin power and seeing how you handled it and if you judged it and all that sort of stuff. So if you did, I'd love to hear from you about how it went. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a very powerful exercise. I've done it many times myself. So please share it with me if you care to, if you had a chance to try that. I want to say I got more comments than usual about last month's final topic, the one on the hierarchy of evolution. I heard from many people that it was helpful to talk about that concept, the hierarchy of evolution. And so I'm happy to know that. It was also a big aha for me to really take a close look at that idea of the hierarchy of evolution versus the equality of all life, and to see how that is a pair of opposites that are part of the yin and the yang. So if you didn't have a chance to listen to that, you might, if that interests you, you can go back and hear it. It's on our website, and there are timestamps, so you can go find exactly where to listen if you want to just listen to that. Okay, I would like to move on to the next topic, but there's just one last thing to add to this discussion, and that is that I heard from a number of people in the past month about how this issue of healing the masculine and feminine imbalance has been playing out in the physical world for you. And so I think it's important to acknowledge what this is, because these are great examples of how many of us are acting as this bridge between the paradigms. So I'd like to just name a couple things that I've been aware of over the past month from a few of you. One of the things is that there are a number of women I know who are in the process of moving on from relationships with men, several of them long-term. And the theme that's playing out there is that the woman is growing and changing spiritually, but her partner isn't. And so this is archetypal. It's very often, in fact, that the men are not interested in changing. And they wonder, why she can't just be happy with what they have, right? They don't understand why she wants any kind of change at all. And they think something's wrong with her because she wants change, and because she is changing. When the truth is that she's evolving and waking up, and he's not. He's remaining the same. And usually it's because he doesn't have the incentive to change. He's happy with the status quo. And so there's no judgment there. There are all kinds of reasons for that, and it's perfect in its way. I mean, sad in one way, but other ways it's perfect. And so anyway, this is a bigger topic. I think it's a topic for another time. But I think also to say that sometimes there's abuse. There's even abuse that some women will put up with because they so want to help him to step into his highest path. They love him so much, and they see his highest potential. But I think what's happening is there comes a point where it's just clearly time to move on. And so a number of these women that I've been very blessed to be privy to their path with them, they're starting to stand up for themselves and to stand in their own power. And they're ending cycles of abuse or judgment or whatever it is, and they're giving themselves permission to practice self-care, maybe, to follow their hearts, to do what it is they know they need to do. And sometimes it's about clearing that old patterning that we're all taught in our culture, that it's selfish to take care of yourself. And that's just not true. Self-sacrificing and being a martyr don't serve anybody. And so that's a very old pattern that a lot of us are focused on clearing, especially women, I think. And it's a big topic. I do go into it in the New Paradigm of the Heart course, but we can also talk about it another time. And then lastly, I'm also aware of a number of men who are going through the process of I would say, finding the courage to stand in their truth. It's about not having to fit into that mold that I was talking about earlier, the old paradigm of what it means to be a man. So, for example, showing emotion, being vulnerable, not having to follow a certain career path if they don't want to, or earn a certain amount of money, or it's also about not having to feel powerless or victimized for any way in which society tells him he's not measuring up as a man, telling him he's weak or inferior for whatever reasons. So it's a lot about learning to be authentic and not being attached to either approval or disapproval, praise or blame. It's about learning to speak our truth without having to convince other people of anything or minding whether they approve or disapprove. Okay. Whew, that was a lot. So we're going to move on to the next topic now, and let's just take a big collective breath here because that was a lot. How are you doing? Hope you're hanging in there. The next topic is healing from loneliness. So I've also met quite a few people lately who are going through a really hard time. And sometimes it's about feeling alone and experiencing the pain of loneliness and also longing for community, longing for the friendship of kindred spirits. And so I felt it was important to address this. Whenever things come to me in threes or in larger numbers, I realize okay, this is one of the themes for the month. So that's what's happening. I need to add that a lot of people I know are in joy most of the time right now. And so if that's you, fantastic. I know that's where I'm at, but not everybody's there. And so if the pain of loneliness isn't what you're experiencing right now, I just invite you to take this in anyway, because you might be able to use some of what we're talking about here to help other people who are experiencing it, or it might be helpful in some other way. So like I was saying at the beginning of the call, it's a very human need to be seen and to be heard and to have our journey witnessed by at least one other human being. And unfortunately, I think it's a very rare thing. Excuse me. I think it's a very rare thing to truly feel seen and heard. I'm reminded of There's a tribe here in South Africa known as the Zulus. I'm sure most people have heard of the Zulus, and they have a word. I love this word. It's the word that they use when they meet somebody, when they greet somebody saying hello, or when they say goodbye. And the word is sawubona. And the meaning of sawubona is I see you. I don't know. It just kind of cracks my heart open when I think of that. It also is, if you saw the movie Avatar, the first one, there's a tribe of indigenous people on this other planet called the Na'vi, and they have the same greeting. It was obviously taken from the Zulu, and maybe there are other indigenous tribes who have that same greeting, but they say, I see you, for farewells and greetings. Also, if you've ever been in the presence of a very illumined spiritual teacher, you might have had that experience of just knowing that you're being seen at a very deep level. I always felt that way with Leslie, and I know many people did. I think she knew me better than I knew myself most of the time. Also, it reminds me, there's a story. There's a story, I can't remember if I read it or saw the video, but it's about an English farmer who, he was an eyewitness to a UFO. There was a sighting of a UFO, and a crop circle formed in his field. And the way he described it was he was in his tractor, and this ball of light, like the size of a beach ball, kind of came down over the engine of the tractor, and the engine stopped. And he was aware, he was sort of frozen, but there was no fear. And he said it was the most spiritual experience of his life, that he felt whatever that intelligence was within that ball of light could see right through him to every minute particle of his being, every thought, every emotion, every memory, all the way back to his childhood. And he said he knew that intelligence in that ball of light was seeing very deep into his soul. And for the first time in his life, he truly felt seen. And so this broke him wide open, and it started him on a kind of a new journey. So I think sometimes just being seen is enough to give us an awakening. And so nowadays, I think, we feel isolated because most of us don't live in spiritual communities. We live with our nuclear family, or we live alone. And there's a part of us that longs for that connection with other kindred spirits, with people of like mind, because then we feel more seen and heard. And of course, this is a big topic because during COVID, the separations were so extreme. And I know a lot of people are still suffering from that. There was this massive collective trauma of that extended time of extreme isolation and separation. So I just thought it might be a good idea today to unpack this subject of loneliness a little bit more. And I think before we start, I think first of all, it's important to distinguish the difference between loneliness and aloneness, which are two different things. Aloneness is just simply having time by yourself. And to me, loneliness is the feeling of like sadness that we experience when we've had too much aloneness. It's this kind of a deep ache inside us, a sadness that we experience. So in one way, aloneness can lead to those feelings of separation and loneliness, which is a painful experience. And in another way, being alone can be a very fulfilling and uplifting experience. I know a lot of people who love their alone time. I love alone time. And in that sense, you get to experience your own energy field, and you get to do the things you want to do. And there's a certain freedom in that. experience. But I think if you have an inclination towards mysticism, which might be many of you listening right now, then I think you know what I'm talking about. That's probably most people. But I think finding a balance with our alone time and our time with other people is really important, because we can only take so much of the aloneness before it turns into loneliness and separation. And again, this is broad brushstrokes. I know that's not everybody. Some people could live in in an isolation tank and be totally happy for a long time. Those of us who've had many monastic lifetimes, that's probably us. But it can turn into loneliness and separation, and then we start longing for that connection and the togetherness. So one of the ways I've found helpful to hold this polarity of aloneness and connection is to look at it in the traditional Taoist sense, which, as we do on these calls from time to time, that's the yin and the yang of it. And so the Taoists call the yang side of the polarity self-sufficiency, and its opposite yin counterpart is community. I find seeing the polarity in that way is helpful. So then life is about finding the balance between those two things. It's not about one side being good and the other bad. There's a time and a place for both. And again, it's good to clear any egoic patterning we might have that forces us into one side or the other. It's important to be able to choose between the two as is needed, and to find that balance. And then it becomes more like the dance of yin and yang. And that brings us joy. That's what life is about, is to learn that dance and to live that dance between those polarities of yin and yang. It brings so much joy. So when you feel lonely, I think it's a good time to practice some of the journaling exercises that we teach in the Marriage of Spirit book. And one of them is polarity processing. And that's where you make a list of the states of mind and emotions that you're feeling, and then you find the words that are the opposites. So, for example, in this instance we're talking about, some of the pairs of polarities might be things like, and I wrote a little list, I'm going to pull it out here. Aloneness versus connection. Loneliness versus togetherness. Separation versus bridging. Distant versus intimate. Seen versus unseen. Heard versus unheard. And then I also wrote down the Taoist polarity, like we said before, self-sufficiency versus community. So anyway, those are just a few quick examples. And if you've never done this, there's no right and wrong to this. You certainly can use different words than I did. But if you try that exercise, you want to usually flesh it out a bit more and go into details a bit more about whatever your situation is and everything that you're feeling around it. And then when you finish making that list of polarities, you say a prayer and you make an offering of that list, and you give all of the imbalances in your pattern back to Spirit. And you let the whole thing go, and then you ask grace to come in and to help you get rewired and do the work of freeing you, doing it for you, so that you don't have to do anything. It's like your work is to do the list and to make the offering, and then the rest is done by grace. You always get a rewiring and a breakthrough when you do that exercise. So anyway, at the end of the call today, we'll include a little offering of that short list. And if you know how to do the other Marriage of Spirit exercises, the triangles and the squares, then you can also do those if you want to have a bigger breakthrough. So for those who know about the squares already, you could write the square using the polarity of aloneness versus connection that we've been talking about. So if you do a square on aloneness versus connection, the four corners would be the desire for aloneness, the fear of aloneness, the desire for connection, and the fear of connection. And if you're new and you've never heard of the squares, they're just simple little journaling techniques. As I said in the Marriage of Spirit book, they're deceptively simple because they always create huge, well, I shouldn't say always, but usually they create huge shifts in consciousness. It's just a simple way of making the unconscious conscious. Also, it was interesting that when I became aware of this theme of people experiencing aloneness and the pain of loneliness, at the same time, I was purging closets and drawers, and I came across a journal of mine, a handwritten journal that was tucked away in a very odd little place. And when I looked at the date, I noticed it was from exactly 10 years ago, March of 2014. And, you know, of course, there are no coincidences, only synchronicities. So because of that exactness of the 10-year cycle, I thought, aha, I knew it was a sign. And I thought, okay, I need to read some of these entries. What is in this thing? I'd completely forgotten it was even there. And it turns out that March of 2014 was the very beginning of when Leslie started to lose her memory. And it was absolutely the hardest time of my life. And when I reread that journal, everything came flooding back to me. It was the most intense shadow experience of my life. And I can't, it's hard to describe, but basically my whole world was crumbling around me. And it wasn't just, you know, that my soulmate was starting to lose her memory and drift away. It was also, you know, she was the one person in the world who I could share anything with and who knew me better than anybody else. And like I said before, she seemed to know me better than I knew myself most of the time. She was the one person who I experienced a deeper intimacy with than I could have ever imagined possible. And I felt helpless. You know, it was just, I was like standing on the shoreline watching my beloved drift out to sea without being able to do anything about it, feeling completely helpless. And there was even a lot more than that going on. There were other changes, other issues happening, but I'm going to spare you those details. But the point that I wanted to share with you was that at that time, a very dear friend of ours came forward and offered a very, very precious gift to me. She offered to set aside time on the phone every Monday morning to talk with me. And I wrote a whole journal entry about it. She just offered to listen, or, you know, to be a witness to my journey, or just to be a compassionate listening ear if that's what I needed, or to offer guidance or whatever it was. But she offered to be there for me and to support me in whatever way I needed so that I could have help getting through the pain and all the challenges I was facing. And I was feeling so lonely. Oh my God, rereading this journal, I was feeling so lonely and so lost. And that gift of her weekly phone call was exactly what I needed. It was such an incredibly loving gesture, and she was just there for me. And it actually went on for many years. And I honestly, looking back on it, I don't know what I would have done without her offering me that gift. So I really realized the importance and the value of friendship and connection and community. We need it. We all need it, especially if we're going through a challenging time. We cannot do it in a vacuum. We need that kind of support. So if you don't have a spiritual community, you know, if you're feeling alone in that way, first of all, it's really important to do that processing that I talked about. First, we need to clear up any of the shadow stuff, the patterning around it. And then I think prayer. We pray for community. We pray for the friends. We pray, even if it's just one, and we call them in. We literally, like, one technique is in prayer and meditation, you send like a silver cord or a golden cord out from your heart or your third eye, and you see it going out there and offering an invitation to friends of like mind, to community. And you invite them in, and you see them connecting to that cord and finding you that way. And then you let it go. But you pray even for just one person who you can talk to about things. And if you do that inner clearing work and if you do that exercise and you pray long and hard enough, they will show up. I promise you, it always works. And it is critical to call them in. We all need this spiritual community. I remember when I met Leslie long ago, she called it keeping the company of the holy. Keeping the company of the holy. Basically, it just means trying to be around people of like mind. Trying to be around people who are heart-centered and loving. And that's essential in these times. So I share this with you. I hope what I shared has been helpful. If you're one of the people who find yourself occasionally in loneliness, I invite you to try these things and let me know. Let me know how that goes for you. So just to complete on that topic, I'd like to read another one of the journal entries from that time for you. I was so distraught about what was happening. And I as I said, I just felt so lost and alone and afraid. And I was doing a lot of prayer, a lot of meditation. And I had a huge breakthrough one day in meditation. And I journaled about it. And I was so happy to reread it. So I want to share it with all of you who might be going through loneliness or any kind of painful situation around loss or disconnection, because this is about seeing the bigger picture and about putting that situation into a reframe, into a different perspective. It really helped me. So I'm going to share it with you in the hopes that it's helpful to you too. In the meditation, I saw that one day this world will fade away from my awareness. It was as though I watched planet Earth recede into the distance and into blackness as, quote unquote, I went out into deep space. The message and the feeling was something like this. Be here now. Appreciate what you have now, because one day it will all be gone. A distant memory. A chimera lost in the mists of time. Find the joy. Find the joy in each moment, in the gift of life that you're given on planet Earth. Find the joy and the love, and help others to do this too. That's your job. Find it for yourself and inspire others to do it too. For as the world gets darker and darker and more insane, it will be more and more essential. Be here now. Find the joy and the love in each moment and recognize the gift you're being given. There was a message about time as well in this experience, and it was something like this. This experience you're having on Earth now is like a drop of water in the ocean of eternity. Your time here shall pass one day, and all of what you now know, your entire human earthly existence, will be but a distant memory, fading away into darkness, you will take with you only the love and the lessons and the light that you are. And all that will remain is the pure awareness of your eternal self. Okay, that's the end of the journal entry. So I'd like to move on to our final topic for today. Finding joy amidst challenges. So I think we're all aware that it's true that there are very, very terrible things happening in the world, including things like war and terrorism and genocide and so much else, and they're beyond horrific. I'm not going to list them all. The insanity of our world and the horror and the unfairness and the inequality in so many ways are just sometimes unbearable. And also, before I go on, just to be clear, I'm not talking about any particular political leader or a political party or a particular country. This is everywhere. This is rampant. The shadow is visible everywhere, in every country, visible for all to see. Every country has its own flavor of shadow. And to me, I'm reminded of two things. One of them, I keep getting these flashes of that last part of the Harry Potter series where dark forces have taken over everything, all the different systems of the world. And the name of it was Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. And I wonder if you've read it or seen it. It was such an apt metaphor for our times. And it still is. And if you remember, I didn't read it, but in the movie, the what we could call the forces of separation seem to be invincible, just like in today's world. And in the end, they lose. But for a long time, they sure seem, most of the movie, they seem to be invincible. And they lose when Harry figures out that he and Voldemort, the great evil guy, are tied together as one somehow. Harry realizes that the light and the dark are two sides of the same coin, and they're doing a dance, and so Harry has the courage to engage in this battle, and the light is victorious. So I guess that's one thing I'm reminded of. The other thing is that every day I'm reminded of that old saying that the fox is guarding the hen house, which I know you've all heard, or the vampire is managing the blood bank is another one. And I mean, I'm laughing, but it's really not funny. I guess it would be funny if it weren't so horrible, but I think if any part of it's funny, it's that the propaganda that's being spewed out about all of this is so obvious, and we're supposed to believe it. And it's just crazy making. And just as I started talking about this, it started raining. Very gentle little rain, like a baptism. So anyway, I guess in times like this, we long for people, for leadership, with anybody with qualities like truth and integrity and courage and heart-centeredness. I don't know about you, but when I hear a leader nowadays who speaks truth and who shows courage by speaking out and, for example, naming what the manipulations are, or whatever it is, showing some kind of courage and speaking out, speaking truth, something deep inside me rejoices. I feel very joyful when I hear people speaking the truth like that. Anyway, I'm not going to go on about that, but anyway, I came across one more journal entry from 2014, when my life was falling apart, and I wanted to read it to you just in case it's helpful. It's about a dream I had, and it's full of really good metaphors, and it seemed to be extremely relevant for that time, but also for these times. So I'm going to share it with you in case it's helpful here. So here we go. The feeling and the mood of the dream was like the scene in The Matrix, the first Matrix movie, when Neo wakes up in the machine world and he sees this vast, bleak landscape of destruction and darkness. And the weather is gloomy and foreboding all around, and he's surrounded by threatening storm clouds. There's no sunlight there. And in fact, the scene in my dream looked very much like that. I was standing on a high cliff edge on a rocky coastline. I looked around, gazing out into the distance, and at the vast skies above, and everything about this place was dark and ominous and scary, as far as the eye could see. There was a spiritual guide with me, a lovely, angelic woman. She was showing me the landscape and explaining to me what we were looking at. The seas were dark and churning. The waves were enormous and lurching chaotically, and the weather threatened all around. In the far distance was some land and some modern-looking structures. A long bridge that reminded me of the Golden Gate Bridge. There was a city. There was a varied landscape without much built on it, and there were other things too. Anyway, the guide said that I was looking at, quote, the territory in consciousness of various beings and peoples and countries and collectives and so forth. She said, for example, the territory of St. Francis of Assisi is out there. She pointed, but I couldn't quite see it. I said, oh, I want to go there. She did not comment, except sort of indicated that we had to be here now. She said, this place where we are right now is the territory of apartheid. Then I started to become aware of the consciousness surrounding me and the feeling in my own body. There was lots of fear. It was very dense. Storms were building around us, and I felt raindrops beginning. The inky, foreboding sea began to churn even more wildly. I was aware of some very dark presences around me. They were starting to take notice of my being there, like I was an intruder in their territory. And then an enormous wave began to build, and I could tell that it was coming towards me. It was threatening to annihilate me. When I surveyed it, I could see there was a menacing man on a surfboard in the far distance, coming right for me with some kind of ill intent. I felt fear passing through me. At this point, I reminded myself to hold a strong witness, that none of this was real, and that I needed to be prepared to hold the light in a strong and unshakable way. It was challenging, but I was succeeding. I knew I was in this dream, but not of it. It was a very difficult emotional storm to navigate. No fun! Exclamation point. I felt like I was the eye of the storm. And I was aware of a huge amount of support from the invisible realms. I was acting like a pillar of light in the midst of this dark place. And I was told that I had been trained for this. This is what I'm good at, and I need to use my skills now to deal with this situation. I held a big presence of light in this very dark place. Somehow, I conjured up a lot of light inside me and around me. Above my head, I could see the sunlight trying to poke its way through the clouds a little bit as I was attempting to create a still point of light in the midst of the dark and stormy chaos. I was very conscious not to make myself, quote-unquote, separate from the surroundings. I could not project that this place or the surfer were evil and separate from me and out to get me. Rather, I had to hold a consciousness of knowing that somehow I was part of this, connected to it, and I was there to help in some way. And this was the whole key to the dream. Like a sorcerer, I projected the light through my hand and fingers at the surfer as he was gunning right for me. I couldn't tell if it was having any effect at all. It didn't seem to. Even though I was beaming a huge amount of light at this character who seemed hell-bent on destroying me, he just kept racing toward me like a shark hungry for his next meal. He got closer and closer and closer until he was almost upon me, and then no matter how intensely I conjured up the light and beamed it at him with all my might, it did not stop him or his malintent. And then the churning wave engulfed both of us. We locked onto each other and we wrestled under the water for a brief moment. I was scared, but held the witness and remained present in the moment. In one swift move, I grabbed the board from him. I jumped on it and I started surfing. As I rode this board, I noticed that the weather had cleared up. I realized I was now surfing a tsunami. Suddenly I woke up. Oh my God, I remember this dream like it was yesterday. And it really helped me in that time to navigate all of the fear and the aloneness that I was feeling. And there are a lot of metaphors in the dream, and they really apply right now, which is why I wanted to share this with you. And so I wrote a few points down here about these metaphors, and I just want to read them out. So apartheid, if you don't know, it means separation. And we're living in a system of separation, as we've been talking about. So that's represented by the machine world in the movie The Matrix, and by the darkness and the chaos in the dream, and we fear that separation, that apartheid. The next thing is, in times like the present, we need to practice holding the light in the darkness. We continue to shine light and practice witnessing even amidst intense fear and shadow. And we don't even know if our actions are making any difference or doing any good, because it doesn't look like we could possibly be affecting anything. But we are. And I think that's the point of the dream, is that even though we don't know, we are. Then in the dream, there's the metaphor of not engaging in much of a fight, and just this very quick submersion below the surface. And in one quick move, stealing the surfboard and continuing to surf the wave. And I think this is, it represents like an easeful resolution that happens when we've been practicing these spiritual practices. We're holding the light, witnessing, having faith. No matter if it looks like we're making any difference or not, we continue our practices. We're making a difference even though we can't see it. And this is important, I think, we're creating the conditions. It's like we're laying the framework. We're creating the conditions for this kind of success, spiritual success, and for easeful transformation to be able to manifest in our lives. And then the last thing I wrote here is, of course, the metaphor of surfing a tsunami is how it can feel sometimes. And I think it kind of feels like that now, doesn't it? I wonder if you're feeling that. Sometimes it does. So we're being invited into fear and anger and depression all the time, especially by the media. And when we're in these states, especially fear, we can't think rationally. We become emotional and we react to situations in a much more primal way. And when we're in fear, we can't think critically. We become traumatized and we freeze. So it's that primal reaction, the fight or flight or freeze response to any scary situation. And so when we're in that state, we're We're much more easily manipulated. And when people are afraid, they usually look for an authority figure to help them out. Excuse me. They want somebody to tell them what to do. So in those times, people will accept even authoritarianism. They may even demand it. Like if you think about what happened after 9/11, that's when Americans allowed the Patriot Act, and that was a huge step towards totalitarianism. And then during COVID, people agreed to surveillance. So I think it's an important time for us to witness our relationship to outside authority and power, and to process those parts of us that might feel afraid and be looking for, an outside authority, a politician or a party or a system or a doctor or a whatever, to save us. So amidst all this fear and so forth, how do we find the joy in all of this? I think it's important to remember a few things, and I wrote a little list down here, so forgive me while I just refer to my notes. So the first thing is that it's important to remember we can either have fear or joy, but we can't have both at the same time. They're opposites. It's that famous song, "Don't worry, be happy," right? Worry is fear energy. So we can either worry or we can be happy, but not both at the same time. And the second thing I wrote down here is good things come from challenging situations. It's important to remember that our greatest challenges are our greatest teachers. There's no growth without an oppressor of some kind. So when something or somebody is oppressing us, that's where we find the courage to stand up and say no, and then we create the change that we want. And this actually is a huge conversation. I dedicate a lot of time to this in the New Paradigm of the Heart course that's on our website that I mentioned earlier. But basically, the principles are things like hardship strengthens us, pain forces us into growth, failure teaches us how to improve. And so this is how the really hard to learn lessons become our greatest teachers. And the last thing I wrote here is if we're feeling victimized by a situation or a person, then we need to do some personal processing around it, learn what we need to learn from it, and find our way through it to the other side of it. So we will get through this very challenging time that the world is in. It's the end of an age, as we all know, and oppressive systems do end. We know from history that that's true. There's this Gandhi quote that I love. I'm going to read it. He said, "When I despair, I remember that all through history, the way of truth and love have always won. There have been tyrants and murderers, and for a time they can seem invincible. But in the end, they always fail, or they always fall. Think of it, always." Okay, so wrapping up now. So what's our role here, and how do we find the joy? I think a few things. Number one, we need to stay as healthy as possible, and we need to stay alive. So that's number one. Number two, practice self-care in whatever way we need it, whatever way nourishes us. Number three, practice witnessing. Number four, processing our consciousness. The outer changes that we pray for begin in consciousness. It's like our CORELIGHT'S tagline, you change the world by changing yourself. So we can let any challenges that we're facing personally and the collective challenges that we're all facing fuel the flames of our passion for our personal spiritual growth and for creating the changes in the world that we all pray for, that we long for, the more beautiful world that we want. And that's how I get through my day, is I'm always letting the challenges fuel the flames of my passion for what I do, for my own spiritual growth and for helping other people too. And so lastly, I think we all need to find the joy in being human, right? It's finding the joy in whatever is right in front of you today, right here, right now. Even if you're in a challenging situation, you feel all the feelings you need to feel. You feel the fear, the depression, the rage, victimization, grief, whatever it is. You feel all of it, and you witness it as best you can. And then when you feel ready, you move back into the joy as much as you possibly can. Joy is the highest expression of the spiritual path. It's the highest vibration we can embody. And the more we can live in joy, the more we raise our own vibration as well as the collective vibration. And the more we live in joy, the more we're acting in service to the collective. And I've been walking this particular path of letting joy be my guide for the last 10 years. And I've discovered the importance of grieving the most tremendous loss in my life and witnessing the fear of it all and having my world turned upside down and allowing the fear and the grief to have their expression, giving them their due. And then also, when they're complete, to let them go and to move into joy as much as possible in any given moment. So it's so much about finding the gift and the opportunity in whatever challenges we're facing. It's about moving through the victim consciousness around the losses and realizing that, like I said before, our greatest challenges are our greatest teachers. And then the joy comes. It comes naturally, especially after grieving. Grief and joy go together, hand in hand. And then, witnessing the fear and letting all of it go. And then the joy just arises naturally. And so for me, walking this path, joy is my new north. And when I face any kind of decision or whatever, my practice is to weigh the decision against my heart. And if I feel a sense of joy inside, then it's a yes. And if not, it's a no. And just by the way, I want to say, since I brought it up, I need to kind of complete with this, that Leslie is living in a tremendous amount of joy. It's extraordinary, actually. In the 25 or so years of our life partnership, when her memory was fully intact, she always had a deep level of joy inside. With the enlightenment came that very deep inner peace and the joy. But this is different. She's expressing the joy now in a very childlike and exuberant kind of way, and she's in that almost all the time. She's playful and innocent and in total delight, and I've actually never known her to be this way. So it's a joy for me to see her getting to experience that kind of joy. It's almost like she never gave herself that kind of joy in life, that childlike joy, and so she's getting to have that now, which is, as I said, it's a joy for me to see her enjoy. So my invitation to you is to join Leslie and me in living in joy as much as you possibly can, no matter what you're going through. Allow the joy of being human to shine through your life whenever it's possible. Okay, I think we're complete with our discussion for today, and so let's just move into questions and answers. Gosh, I'm realizing that took a long time. Wow, that's longer than normal. I'm so sorry. I hope you're still awake. We've only got a few minutes left. Okay, I'll go through as many questions as I can. The first one is, well, before I say this, I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank you for your questions and all the heartfelt sharing that you send me. I really appreciate hearing from you. And in case you're new, the way it works is you can just email your questions in advance to courses@corelight.org. And if I do read all the questions, I don't always get to answer all of them, but if I don't, you know that your question will get answered somewhere else by another teacher or in a book or in a dream or somebody will assist you somehow. So the first one is from Nicola. She says, my question is about love. How to feel, experience, and deeply know that I am this love. And Nicola, that is such a good question. I thank you for asking it. It's one of my favorite subjects of all. The journey to love is the most beautiful journey that we can take. It's right up there with joy. Love is like the foundation for joy. They go hand in hand. So I can share with you the practices that have helped me on this path, and I know they help Leslie too. The first one is what we've been talking about today, clearing away the egoic patterns that would block you from it. And there are many. So remembering that this is a journey, right, and a practice, that's very important. But just to give you a few examples of the kinds of patterns I'm talking about that would block you from love, would be things like any sense of unworthiness or worthlessness, and any sense of being undeserving. And we all have this, it's deep down in the unconscious. So it's ideas like I'm not worthy of being loved, I don't deserve to receive love, who would want my love? It's these kind of programs. And you may not even have been given that by your parents, but even if you feel this doesn't apply to you, it's in the collective. I have to say, especially for women, and that's because of the last few thousand years of patriarchy. The Bible, the first few pages of the Bible is basically telling us that women are evil. And that was drilled into the collective psyche for thousands of years. So it's there, and it affects all of us, even if we're not aware that it affects us. So this is the clearing that I'm talking about is not just personal, it's collective clearing as well, but we need to find the place where it's within us. And this is a big topic, so I'm not going to dwell on it. But the next example I can give you is fear. That's another one. For example, like being afraid of giving and receiving love, being afraid of letting go of the ego as we know it. The ego is synonymous with control, and we all have control issues. We've all got an ego. So the ego fears its death. It fears letting go, fears loss of control. So that's another thing to be looking at. Another one is any kind of belief in lack, right? Like there's not enough love to go around, or you don't have enough love to give, or anything like that. If there was ever anything that your parents might have said to each other or to you when you were very, very little that would have imprinted in some way. And so the way that I'm just giving you very few examples. This is very quick. But the way that Leslie and I cleared these patterns is by using the marriage of spirit practices that I've been talking about today, the polarities, the triangles, and the squares, those three things. And they're very simple journaling techniques. But there are many, many methods out there for clearing. You don't have to use the marriage of spirit practices. It's just important that you find some clearing method that works for you, and you use that. We all need to be doing some form of egoic clearing these days, some kind of shadow clearing. But you might try the marriage of spirit techniques because they are super quick and simple, but very, very powerful. Okay, so the clearing work is one thing. The other thing I would suggest to you is practicing witnessing. I'm assuming if you've been around for any length of time, you hear me talk about it. Sometimes on these calls, I'll talk more about it than others, but we wrote a chapter in the Marriage of Spirit book on witnessing, so it tells you a lot about what that is, but it's critical. If you want to experience love and feel love and know yourself as love, witnessing is critical. Whatever you like to call it, it's a spiritual practice that's essential. And another thing I would recommend, these are kind of some obvious things, but I might as well say them since you asked. It's meditation, that kind of goes hand in hand with things like stress reduction and practicing relaxation techniques. The reason I say these things is because when we relax the physical body, we're laying the foundation to be able to experience deep peace inside. We forget that relaxing goes hand in hand with peace. And cultivating deep peace inside is what lays the foundation to be able to experience love. So a very foundational practice can be meditation and any kind of stress reduction. The last thing, there are plenty more things I could share, but pardon me, the last thing I'll say is the course that Leslie first taught when she first woke up was called the Spiritual Warrior Training Course. And it's up on our website. We've represenced it and put it up on the website. And there's a session in that course called Awakening to Love, one of the 5 sessions. And my absolute favorite of all of Leslie's audios of all time that she ever recorded is in that session, and it's called The Heart of the Matter. And if you go to our website for Spiritual Warrior Training, you can hear a short little clip from that audio. And I can tell you, I have listened to that audio more than any other audio, and it truly, that audio and that session and that course laid a foundation for me for my entire spiritual journey. I would say that course and the Marriage of Spirit book are my bedrock foundational practices that have allowed me to keep my heart open. So, and to awaken to this state of knowing that I am love and that I can give love and that I'm worthy of love and that love is the truth of who we are. So you might consider those things, and I hope that's helpful. And Nicola, I wish you all the best on your journey. I'm so grateful you asked me about that. I could spend an entire spiritual weather report on just that topic. Maybe I will one day. So thank you. The next question is from Dar. Do you feel it's necessary to go through suffering before you can awaken spiritually? Some have had spontaneous awakenings, and maybe they experienced it in past lives. But for the majority of us, does the suffering increase as you come closer to awakening? So thanks for your question, Dar. It's a good question. And I think, first of all, it's really important to distinguish between pain and suffering. They're very different. Pain is something that everybody experiences. You cannot go through life without experiencing the polarity of pain and pleasure. That's the dance. It's the dance of life that we're all incarnating to go through. It's like souls from all over the universe want to come to planet Earth to ride that roller coaster. It's the greatest ride in the cosmos, right here on planet Earth. The roller coaster of pain and pleasure. But suffering is very different from pain. Suffering is where we make the pain real. It's where we think that we are the pain, and it's where we create stories in our mind around the pain, and we actually make something out of it. But the truth of it is that you're not the pain, nor the pleasure. You are pure awareness, and the pain and the pleasure, and in fact all the emotions, are passing through you. You experience them, you feel them, but you don't make the mistake of believing that that's who you are and that they're real. And so this is the practice of witnessing. This is it's developing an objective observer to all of this. And it has a lot to do with practicing what could be called spiritual detachment and surrender. And so this is our awakening, really, is what we're talking about. The more you're in the witness state, the more you're awake to the truth of who you are. And then you can experience pain or pleasure without attachment to either one. So in answer to your question, I would say suffering definitely does not increase with the awakening process. And in fact, it diminishes tremendously. And in fact, you don't suffer at all when you're awake. It doesn't mean you don't experience pain. You do. You experience pain, but it's not the same as it used to be when you experienced it from, your former state of separation. You're able to witness it and let it pass through you. And if you experience pain, then you make it part of your meditation. You know that this too shall pass, and you can feel it and just be with it, and then you can let it go. I wanted to mention, I met an author recently who wrote a book called The Pain Paradox: How Pain Can Lead to Inner Peace and Lightness of Being. And her name is Catherine Rolt, R-O-L-T, Catherine spelled with a C, Catherine Rolt, R-O-L-T. I have not read the book yet, but it does come highly recommended, and I've spent time with her, and I can tell you she's the real deal. So if you're interested in this issue of pain, you might consider reading that book. I know it's helped a lot of people. So I hope that helps, Dar. Thank you for your excellent question. Let's do one more, a few more minutes. The next one is from Colleen. Colleen says, my meditations have been very difficult for the past several months. I quickly become tired and begin to doze off. I know a good meditation needs to be in the field of alertness, and I'm not able to stay there. Any suggestions? Yeah, so this will be fairly quick because we don't have much more time, but I can tell you, first of all, it's really important, and you may, forgive me if you know this already, but I'm just going to say it. So it's really important not to judge any meditation. All of our meditations are unique and perfect no matter what they look like. I also know it's true that in meditation, the body comes first. So in other words, the body takes what it needs first. So if it needs rest, it's going to take it. So you should just let the body have the rest it needs if it's, if it's nodding off, and just then try not to judge yourself for it. Not that you're judging yourself. I don't know if you are or not, but just in case, it's important to remain non-judgmental towards yourself. So that being said, I think there are a few tips, some basic tips to stay alert during meditation, and a few of them would be, I think maybe the main one is to focus on improving your sleep at night, right? And getting more good quality sleep. So lots of people teaching courses nowadays in how to get better sleep. You can look online for that. I've read quite a bit about it myself because I've also needed help with sleep. I have similar problem to you sometimes, nodding off during meditation. Let's see, I wrote a few things down here. The second thing, take a shower before you meditate and end the shower with cold water. The next one, try exercising or doing yoga before meditation to get get some movement in the body. Another one, don't meditate in bed. I find that we create a sleep vortex in our beds. So if you're waking up in the morning and trying to sit up and meditate, it often doesn't work for that reason. Best to get up and take a shower and do a little stretching and then find a special place where you can be more alert. Another one is make sure there's plenty of fresh air coming into the room. So if you're not in freezing cold winter, open your windows. Next one, start with breath work. Pranayama is a good one. So you can look up, if you don't know about breath work, you can look up online. But pranayama, if you look online for pranayama, that's a good one. And that energizes the body. And the last thing I wrote down here is counting breaths can help. I know if I'm super sleepy, sometimes with each breath, inwardly saying a number helps me to stay alert. So I hope that helps, Colleen. Thank you, and best wishes with your meditation practice. Okay, we've got a couple more minutes, so let's close out with a quick little prayer. And I invite you now, if you're multitasking, please join me in sitting down and getting quiet, just pausing for a couple minutes just to take a few long, slow, deep breaths. Breathing in the light, breathing out the shadow. Breathing in the love, breathing out any tension that we might be holding in the body. Breathing in peace. And breathing out any mind stuff. If our conversation churned up your mind, you can just breathe it out and let it go. And find that deep sense of stillness and peace inside. So we call on Great Spirit, all of our guides, teachers that have been surrounding us during this time. We invite you in and we give thanks. And we're making an offering right now. We're offering up that list of polarities that I rattled off about aloneness versus connection. And I named the corners of that square, desire and fear of aloneness and the desire and fear of connection. So we're giving all that back. And we're calling in joy. We're calling in joy and love and deep, deep, deep inner peace, even amidst the challenges of our times. And we remember right now, with each other as witnesses, that our challenges are our teachers. Our greatest challenges are our greatest teachers. And so we honor them for that. And we see the gift and the opportunity in the challenges. And we allow all the many emotions that we need to feel to pass through us. And when they finish and we feel complete, we call in joy. And we find the joy of being human and the joy of what's right in front of us. So once again, we offer our deep gratitude for this time that we share together, for the love that we receive, the gift of these bodies, and we send a special prayer and a blessing out to the world. Prayer for all life. We pray for protection and courage for all whistleblowers and people in government and in positions of power. Please bless and protect and inspire all those who are working for universal peace. And we pray for an end to war on the planet. We pray for peace, world peace. Please make us instruments of peace. Where there is war and conflict, may we sow peace. And we give thanks. Thanks for this opportunity. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Alalahu. And when you feel ready, slowly bring your awareness back into the room and into your body, and slowly wiggle your fingers and toes. Feel fully present. And I thank you all. Thank you once again for showing up, for being part of this community, this virtual community. We do plan to shift to Zoom one day to have visual so that we can, at least you can see me, maybe see each other, I don't know, but we're working on that. So hopefully one day soon. Meanwhile, I send you all my love, so much gratitude to you, and really looking forward to seeing you again in April. Till then, many, many, many blessings. Be in joy. Be in peace. Bye for now.